Hello, this is Gerald van Was. In this video I will explain the word mond or mond, two times written the same thing, but in two languages it means something completely different. You have in the German word mond, which is basically the moon, and the Dutch word mouth is, mond is then the mouth actually. Mouth in different associations. You have, of course, the mouth of something, which you have as well. Eventually I could also expand this to the French word monde, which means the world. But now I will limit myself to these three first, to the word monde itself, or monde, in these three kinds of associations. The theory that I have says that the structure of references that you have by associating these letter combinations brings you to one kind of structure in which your mindset is set into it, so that you are led to a certain interpretation in which kind of elements it has, what kind of directions it has, what kind of movements or changes that are happening within this description with the letters. The theory that I have, you can find more explained in some other videos, how well every letter has either a position, a direction, or a kind of behavior which is almost the same, always the same, and which is combined as a kind of puzzle. Why it works so is simply because that's the simplest way how to associate things, is our way how we orientate ourselves into a spatial frame, or into a time frame, or into a happening which is a movement of changes, and we behave ourselves into these worlds in 3 dimensions, into 2 times 3 dimensions, or 3 times 3 dimensions. How we behave into that. This 2 times 3 is actually not more than, okay, some things will move in time into a certain directions, and the 3 times 3 is like, okay, these movements adapt the whole time into one of these 3 directions in space. That's why you need this kind of complexity form in which you can explain actually all of the associations that you have from the letters onwards. I don't often use this full geometry into my ideas, because we have to have it as simple as possible, as quick as possible, so we actually hardly need these extra dimensions to give us an idea of what it is about. But here in this case we will be able to use it to help us to have as simple as possible explanation how actually these two words, mond or monde, come to a different perspective, or different outcome actually. But they are based upon the same aspects in the structural sense, and that will I explain in this video. So the letter M first. So the M is a localization. It's a foundation with one eye, so with a 0 point and the 3 dimensions that you have in there. And the M is a letter that is about what you see there at the borders of your perspective there, and the borders in then also in a vertical sense, but also into the full 3-dimensional perspective. So the verticals into this full perspective are opening up to the borders again, and that's how you can explain also this letter M. It's an expansion into actually where it goes towards its limits at the border. But of course also there the vertical will be the most leading aspect of how you can see the evolution running. Just like you see the letter M, actually it's an extension, but it's an extension at the borders, and it's an extension that lifts it up to a level where it expands its frequencies, its way how it looks, or the way how it grows, that kind of thing. So always at the border. That's a kind of a way how you can associate the letter M and understand what the letter M is about. There's a logic that builds up from just 1 point to 2 points to 3 points. Here you need 3 points of orientation at the borders where something is in its growth process. That's the letter M, basically explained, again a bit different as before, but that's basically, yes, what it is. So these 3 angles is just like, yeah, that's the range in which it can occur. The letter O is from the second category. All these letters from the second category are about timing, so they need the 2 frames, so 2 times 3 dimensions in which you are here in the second dimension, so into the area where you start, into the starting point of the area of changes, where you follow up the changes. Is the letter O actually the starting point of a follow-up? So it's a follow-up of what is going to change there. So I'm going to, with my focus towards the point or the direction in which it changes, and I emphasize upon that. That's the letter O. And basically it's explained well in this way. The surface actually of this M with this opening up is very well fitting with this first meaning of the mouth, in which you actually have the opening up, so the opening up of the space into something that is timed, so that is opening up into a time frame. This is the mouth which is opening, while the basis emphasis is are the borders in which there are where you can see the expansion. So the mouth already fits very well already in the mo, where the N then is basically also from the second category, the first level, which is about, yeah, I'll start from the space and I lift it up into the vertical. So I'm opening it up. It's focus upon the opening, the direction of the opening of the M, the direction of the openings, the direction of the openings in N. I follow that up. The D, basically written down as a D but pronounced as a T, is about what is change, focus upon what is actually the element of change, because at the point of the first, where D starts, we have an awareness that it didn't change yet, but there will be a spatial change, a spatial move. At a certain point it will move, and it will move to a change. So it's basically always about these 2 points. I'm here now, but at some point it will be something different, and these differences is again by the letter T, the upward move actually in future, where at some point the mouth could open itself. So that will result to the opening, the physical opening that is already announced with M followed by O. That's basically mouth. So what about Mond, then, the German word? You have a double O here, so actually it should almost like double your focus, that, you know, I have to follow it up into even more stages. Mond is then no longer relevant to this foundation, because it will double itself. So I will also have a doubling of my focus. I have to make my puzzle actually a bit different. These 2 faces are not sufficient, so I can't make Mond as a mouth alone in this case. The mouth is also the start where something will be opening, so that's already the second meaning of the word mouth. Not just the mouth of your mouth, but any mouth will do. But the Mond with a double O, pronounced as a double O, gives you already a clue. Now the 2 parts will matter. I mean, even if it's just written as 1 O, so I will still have to have a focus into just one environment. I have to see them into just one environment, but the follow-up in time is longer, and it has a longer follow-up as well. So it's not just the 2 stages anymore, it will have more stages, and they almost have a clue what that mode is about. But how can we imagine it then as a form? I will build it up then again to make that clear, how it still will make a fit with the same word structure, the structural reference But there we need a little bit the awareness of how these dimensions in the background work as well. So it's not just a form into just one position, it will be also the timing process will have to be followed as well. So we will explain that as well in most of these words. The M is clear enough what it will do. I have to explain that too, and the O will be more or less at that point where I will see it from a distance. Okay, what will be the change of that opening in that way? So that will be the opening aspect for where it will open up its processes. That will be the same, but we will add also the dimensions. The background, what will happen, the ATK is into one position or just one point. The ULB are into two dimensions or not, or in 2 points or into a certain area that you can imagine as a frame, a plate actually, or an area that has 2 dimensions. Yeah, basically it can be any form. Into 2 dimensions. The C, M and X are into 3 dimensions, means it will have a focus into all directions. It tries to breach itself into all directions, even though you can try to imagine everything within 2 dimensions already, like on the paper you have that, and I will try to limit myself a little bit. But the 3 dimensions are then more based upon, we have the horizontal, vertical and diagonal. We need them all to see, like, okay, but the expansion is in all directions, not just in two directions. So they will matter as well from our one focus onwards, at the borders here, of course, still. So we have actually an idea of M, of an extension at the borders into all directions. That's basically the letter M. What's the letter O then doing? The letter O will have that time setting, as I already told you. It's the starting point of the time setting, focusing again upon what is changing, and it will watch over all the future, and in fact also potential differences. So it hasn't changed yet. It is about to change, and it's going towards, what is going to be changed in that extension within a time frame. We're going to watch over that. Basically, it's like, okay, it's that I will have that impulse again, where I have the O, with MOND, I will have that expansion from space towards its a bigger environment in which you can have time frame. I have here a time frame with a certain evolution, goes up and down. That's basically a basic combination of changes, and there at these borders I will have actually the breaking point in which it will be different, will be seen some differences into the future, where it will break open or it will not at that point. So basically, if we have that, we have we always have 2 frames, but for the MOND I will have just one focus alone, where I will have actually not much more than, basically these 2 phases, a phase 1 and phase 2, in which one of both within 3 dimensions I have this phase 3 eventually as well, so into 3 directions, but I will have just 2 basic phases. The phases in Mo will be then basically about opening and closing, the opening of the mouth, which is then in that diagonal sense of that breaking open of the M, in that area of sense or degree, let's say, of opening, and that closed when nothing happened or nothing happened yet, where you had that already, where you have that from the focus of the beginning. The mouth is closed, but it could open at a certain point. With MOND, there will be more phases, of course, so that's why I have these variations of up and down in it, to have these variations with more contrast, with phase 1, the starting point in O, phase 2, the opening up of the mouth itself, then the second O, where I will see again this opening up, but the opening there is especially with the N, which is about positive and negative, to be or not to be, changing positions in space. Basically, that's explained in my book, what kind of features the N should have I will have these tendencies, and I will show both of them with the N to it. I will show what will happen and what will not happen. So I have a bit more phases in that way. With the double O, I have double as much phases than just opening up and closing down. Phase 3 and 4 will be added there as well. How can I then explain it into forms? In MOND, of course, I will have these phases up, phases down, which within just one focus or O. I will have them, because it's written as O, I will have them all within one circle, the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then the contradictions will come to it as well. With the yeses and nos of the letter N. Basically, yes, no, in its totality, or from where I start and where I go to, I have, yeah, there it is not, there it is, or there it is, and there it is not. And of course also the breaking point until where I can have these variations into the cycle of the moon cycle as we presented. These are the vertical angles as well. The MOND itself, if we split it into actually how many dimensions we see it, MOND, I will see the circle in front of us, where you can see that darker circle. Actually, that's the M, which is the part that you see, which is 0 point in the background, is also connected to these time processes in the background, which are potentially in another 0 point away, where this has an access point to that time potential. And according to what you see in the time process, it will have a different effect on the physical frame into the two dimensions. Basically, if you have that in a perspective, you have this two-dimensional frame which you see, and in the background you have another circle, let's say, which turns connected just in one point, but it's like it has a whole process related to a certain process with phases. It has these phases, which basically are the fourth dimension based upon where the connection points within all this whole frame of M, which has all the phases visible as well when we will go up to the next dimension. The fifth dimension is described as the phases, all the phases, not just the direction in which it all can go and it has a connection to in its middle point, but into its full circular projection of all the possibilities of phases that you can have. It's almost like a clock, the fifth dimension in that way, with O is about the clock axis to all the phases. So the phases will connect actually the form as well, will influence the form. And I could translate this into mathematics, and you can see that mouth at a certain stage opening and closing. These are the stages, depending on where on the evolution scale that you get a connection to. And you have this whole evolution, this whole movement as well. From the moment on fourth dimensions there will be movement and changes. In the fourth dimension, you have hardly a clue where it's about, because you have this 0 point, which is just always a phase in a different time, in the future, in the past. You always see only just one phase. In the fifth dimension, you will see all these phases and its variations. The full opening of the mouth, the full formation processes will become visible in that way. So I hope I'm not going to make it too difficult by adding this idea as well. But in MOND, then you just have these two main stages of the mouth, which is the opening and the closing. So it's just like, okay, you have this one stage in M, or you have this other stage in M, which is the opening mouth, and that's actually all that matters. Between that, the closed or the open mouth, actually, that's enough to grasp the idea. With MOND, with a double O, there will be much more needed to comprehend it. It has all these stages in many more many more stages of follow-up, and it's not just opening and closing or light and dark. It has all stages of opening and many more opening and closing stages in many more options, between full and empty, and between the forms in between, actually. So almost the doubling of focus compared to MOND with just one O idea. So MOND is actually described just in letters alone already by this form, and that's basically what is enough to understand the difference between MOND and MOND. And I already gave you an introduction about how these dimensions could help you also to have a good visualization of the processes that are described with the letters correctly according to what the words should mean and should be able to express. And even if you see like MOND and MOND, at the first sight there are no relationships whatsoever between these two concepts. When you analyze actually the structure of the letter combinations as a definition underneath, they are actually not so much different from each other, because its structure is the same. It's geometrical, and dimensional structure is actually quite the same. I hope you enjoyed this one. You can have an introduction of this theory in the books sounding that are related with the sounding form, volume 1 and 2 are separate ones, or you have an alphabetic list of previous videos in sounding form, any of these Facebook pages as well to get you informed, and this YouTube channel. Thanks again for watching. Bye.